Is there a diet that was intended for man? Was man intended to be a beast or a spiritual being? This is not a recommendation. I'm not offering medical advice. Do your own research. Atheist. This is because they literally believe in the theory of evolution and they don't realize it. They've constructed a viewpoint of the world based on a theory, which is that we came from randomness. We had to fight to survive. Were we designed originally to eat a certain way? Let's get started at the beginning. The original Adam, the first being fully ethereal or astral. We were light beings that were sustained by our own energy, created from the Son of God. The breath of life that we have is the mother or the spirit. You must choose, are you a physical being that came from apes, or are you a spiritual being that has slowly de-evolved? It's the argument of duality. Are you a bag of meat, or are you a spirit experiencing a physical body? Therefore, if there exists a spiritual reality, one that we originally came from and have slowly de-evolved into a material state, I would argue that nature is the process of coming back into alignment with that first state of everlasting life and away from death. Let's start with vegans. I've been vegan for 4 years or so, on and off, and I've watched all the main YouTubers, and I can break this down and explain why it's unhealthy, especially how it's advertised and marketed today. Here's the first issue. They try to look at the diet from such a scientific point of view. They use the same standard of protein that is issued for meat and try to fill themselves up with as much protein from plants as possible. I know not all vegans eat primarily soy, but come on, this is the problem. These vegan channels don't understand that soy is toxic. That cooking with oils and eating all this protein is making our bodies extremely acidic. I'm not even entering this argument from the standpoint that vegans don't get enough nutrients. On the contrary, I'm saying that they're eating too much garbage that is not good for them, and they also do not have a connection with spirit or nature. It's usually mostly ethical. They also for some reason are perfectly fine with cane sugar, which is a no-no. Vegans try to calculate everything and are even willing to supplement all these different vitamins that they need. Look, I'm for the ethical reasons, but eating soy almost every day and eating peanut butter and a high-grain diet is not necessarily healthy. And the main reason is that it's not easily digested by us. Most of these vegan channels are trying to teach people how they can get big and buff and healthy on the vegan diet, and it's not really healthy. Too much protein is acidic for the body. Without proper knowledge of digestion and cleansing, the body will rot from the inside out. Our modern society feeds itself constantly, whether vegan or carnivore, way too much. And we accept it because we have to have a certain amount of calories each day or we will die from hunger and get sick. Most who eat this way have no clue what is going inside their intestines. How do you think food gets through you? Just magically? Our livers produce the enzymes and it just all goes through our intestines nice and clean? It has to go through a very long system. And no, we do not produce enough enzymes ourselves. Most of our kidneys and our complete endocrine system has been completely shut down. We don't even realize that we're not filtering out the toxins in our body. Over time, this shuts down the feeling of senses in the intestines and you no longer feel that you're rotting. What do you think a bloated belly is? All diseases usually have the same underlying cause. The issue is autointoxication. Proteins putrefy and rot in the body. Same goes for fats and oils. They just turn rancid in your body. This isn't hard. You have the acid side and then the alkaline side of the chemistry. You're most likely extremely acidic if this is your first time hearing this information. You have to have the eyes to see what is life and what is death. It will all make sense soon. Your fecal matter can poison you. It infects and rots tissue, degenerates our bowels, and can cause polyps, fissures, tumors, and even cancer. Quote, could autointoxication or self-poisoning be a major player in the high amount of disease in this country? One prolific health writer penned 100 years ago, the impurities of the body, if not allowed to escape, are taken back into the blood and forced upon the internal organs. Nature makes an effort to free the system, and the effort produces fever and what is termed disease. This is nothing new, and even Dr. John Harvey Kellogg said a century ago, 90% of diseases are due to improper functioning of the colon. One of the first things to do to get rid of any so-called disease is to get rid of toxemia, for it is the state of blood that makes disease possible. Disease is a crisis of toxemia, which means that toxin has accumulated in the blood about the toleration point, and the crisis, the so-called disease, called a cold, flu, pneumonia, headache, or typhoid fever, is a vicarious elimination. Nature is endeavoring to rid the body of toxins. Any treatment that obstructs this effort at elimination baffles nature in her effort at self-curing. J.H. Tilden, Toxemia Explained, 1926. Oh, but nature's a logical fallacy. See, these mainstream vegans can't even understand. The body possesses its own natural healing mechanism. So much so that some of them even recommend taking antibiotics. Quote, if the colon is not working properly, toxins must exit the body through other routes. The kidneys, the skin, the breath. Many of these patients have bad halitosis, body odor, etc. When a person becomes ill from colon disease, he or she may develop a variety of symptoms, including headaches, muscle aches, fatigue, autoimmune diseases like lupus or rheumatoid arthritis, cancer, or cardiovascular disease. Dr. Bernard Jensen made the following statement. In the 50 years I've spent helping people to overcome illness, disability, and disease, it has become crystal clear that poor bowel management lies at the root of most people's health problems. In his book, Tissue Cleansing Through Bowel Management, Dr. Jensen discusses mucoid plaque. He writes the heavy mucus coating in the colon thickens and becomes a host of putrefaction. The blood capillaries to the colon begin to pick up the toxins, poisons, and noxious debris as it seeps through the bowel wall. All tissues and organs of the body are now taking on these toxic substances. Here is the beginning of true auto-intoxication on a physiological level. On page 27, he reveals his experience in the matter. One autopsy revealed a colon to be 9 inches in diameter with a passage through it no larger than a pencil. The rest was caked up layer upon layer of encrusted fecal matter. This accumulation can have the consistency of truck tire rubber. It's that hard and black. Another autopsy revealed a stagnant colon to weigh in at an incredible 40 pounds. Imagine carrying all that morbid accumulated waste. The late Elvis Presley and John Wayne had toxic colons in excess of 40 pounds each. The FDA admits that the average American male can be carrying 5 to 22 pounds of feces on a given day. This is even worse with meat eaters. Our stomach is not designed to digest meat, first off, and any health benefits experienced on this diet are purely temporary from high fat. This diet is not a diet of nature. You could say, well, what about animals? We aren't beasts. We have fallen into a lower state of being. And I'm trying to explain a very deep spiritual reality that has been lost to humanity. It's because we have lost the ability to credit the mother, the watcher, and the supporter of our mind and body. We don't realize what consciousness is, and so don't realize that from within this light is our true self, a godlike being that needs not any other living creature to survive. Meat eaters are vampires. They require the life force of another being to continue their existence. Our whole society has become vampires, even vegans. They just eat fake meat, so they symbolically are eating the blood. The entire thing is a joke, and it's a shame that humanity has lost itself so far. I can tell you how we got into eating meat, and it wasn't evolution or nature. It comes from cannibalism and religion. There was a time where nature actually fed us. There was no need for us to grow or farm. We just ate the fruit-bearing seed. And then we have the famous Genesis quote, "And God blessed them. And God said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree, in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat." Notice how he mentions how man has dominion over the animals, but he does not say that they are for meat. No, he says, every herb-bearing seed, and every tree in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. I mean, I think that's pretty clear. But for those of you who reject Bible, these scriptures are from a very ancient source. Yes, they've been distorted, but these ideas are ancient in nature, and I will show you as we go that what I'm presenting is nothing new. So we have the protein myth. There's this whole concept in the mainstream that you need a certain amount of protein or nutrients in order to stay healthy, and while this is true, it's not true in the way it's practiced. we are overeating. If we needed protein to be big and strong, then why do cattle, horses, and gorillas get so big and strong? It's not true. And we have to get out of this mindset that science has our best interest, or, science isn't science anymore, it's just propaganda. Not only is it too much protein, but your body is most likely not absorbing and breaking down the amino acids. If your body was cleansed and not filled with toxic rotting waste, and you practice a light diet of living foods, then you would absorb all the protein you need from fruits, herbs, nuts, seeds, and vegetables. There are many raw fooders who talk about this power that comes from raw foods, that it makes you high, that in this state you can build real muscle, more dense and lean rather than this inflated acidic muscle. You're also very alkaline in this raw state. This must have an effect on the power of building muscle because the blood becomes electric. Your etheric and astral energies begin to become more prominent to your senses. Material reality is an illusion, and mind, or the mind of God, is limited and not functioning properly in the majority of most humans. Not that they're not intelligent, but the mind is cut off from these spiritual realities. They have fully invested their spirit into the material realm, and in doing so, they become a parasite. As the material realm is parasitic in nature, it feeds off the energy of spirit to survive. They didn't eat like we do today, and they had a much longer lifespan. This is because they understood the body and mind. The Essene way of life. The Essenes were a spiritual community of people. Many famous biblical characters like Jesus, Mary, Joseph, John the Baptist were Essenes. The Essenes were alchemists and had powers of clairvoyance, which allowed them to speak to angels and see nature spirits. Alright, so what I'm about to share is pretty mind-blowing if all this is new to you, but basically there's a gospel called the Essene Gospel of Peace, which was translated from an ancient Dead Sea Scroll that was locked up in the Vatican. And in this gospel, the sick come to Jesus and ask him for assistance. Jesus basically tells them that they can't see nature and that they need to come back to the mother. He tells them that they need to start fasting and to start performing enemas. And one of the guys becomes too sick from fasting, so the others beg Jesus to cure him. So Jesus milks a goat. He blesses the milk with all the different angels for each element. And then this guy passes out, and then out of his mouth comes a worm the size of his body. So Jesus pulls it out and crushes it with a rock. And he's pointing to it, and he's like, see, this is what's been sitting inside of your guy's body. So the guy who was suffering finally was cured from his pain. And I'm gonna break this down in a second, but hang on there. This is super interesting stuff. You're gonna find it interesting. So the Essenes are mentioned in history by Josephus, Philo, and Pliny, all having one thing in common: the Essenes' origins are lost in prehistory. I tend to think that what Josephus wrote on them is slight misinformation, as he says the Essenes married, and Pliny says the Essenes never marry. Josephus says that the Essenes are found in every city, but Pliny locates them on the western coast of the Dead Sea. Quote, on the west side of the Dead Sea, but out of range of the noxious exhalations of the coast, is the solitary tribe of the Essenes, which is remarkable beyond all other tribes of the whole world, as it has no women and has renounced all sexual desire, as has no money, and it has only palm trees for company. Day by day, the throng of refugees is recruited to an equal number by numerous accessions of persons tired of life and driven there by the ways of fortune to adopt their manners. Thus, through thousands of ages, incredible to relate, a race in which no one is born lives on forever, so prolific for their advantage is other men's weariness of life. So, if you guys haven't seen that video on Conspiracy RS's channel on waste management, you gotta see it. It's completely relative, and I think it explains a lot. So, okay, so this is what I'd like to put forth. In the Golden Age, we had a diet that did not create hazardous waste. Literally, we probably did not have to poop. Sounds crazy, but his video goes over how our sewer systems aren't designed for waste, and it doesn't really make sense that they would build these cities and not prepare for such an important factor. When you have millions of people that poop, why would you build a city that doesn't take waste management into consideration? It doesn't really make sense. And the reason is that we are in a deep state of amnesia. We found these cities after a great cataclysm. We fell into cannibalism and needed to feed like beasts in order to survive after the confusion. Before, we had symbiosis with nature. Magic was possible. We ate off the fruits of giant trees, and there were plenty of herbs for meat. This increased our vibrational frequency and allowed us not only to live longer, but it made us more intelligent. It makes sense if you really just think about it, you know? The society that created all these great monuments of the world must have had a passion for the development of the human mind, as is reflected by how they built their cities. As within, so without. Carnivores are not taking into consideration digestion. Sure, the high fat probably helps with some ailments that you may have with dysfunctioning organs, but overall, the carnivore diet is putting your body into ketosis and then stacking toxins on top of toxins. There are only two sides of chemistry. It's either acidic or alkaline. When you're eating a high fat protein diet, that leads to acidosis. This is chemistry. Our body has to process all of this, and the typical explanation for why we don't need to cleanse our body is, oh, we have a liver. Yeah, you have a liver that's been whipped your entire life with toxic processed foods that your parents fed you. And then sure, maybe you're someone who decided to try a diet trend to get healthy, but let me tell you, carnivore and keto diets are the worst diets to ever be thought of for the human race. You're basically putting your body into a critical state, while at the same time your intestines are filled with rotting meat. There's proof. You should begin your research. They've known about mucoid plaque for a long time now. They pulled out 50 pounds of waste out of Elvis Presley. Dr. Hiromi Shinya, who gave his patients a specific light diet with alkaline, magnetized water to help clean out the colon, saw a great improvement in their health as their colon became more clean. He too came to the conclusion that our modern lifestyle of eating mostly protein was leading to ill health. This waste is then sitting in your body and creates an environment for parasites. Someone commented that these parasites are actually beneficial for us. No, tapeworms and other serpent-like beings living inside of your intestines, heart, and brain, and then manipulating your thoughts to eat like they want you to eat is not beneficial. Look, it can be hard to admit these things. If this information stresses you out or irritates you, it's maybe because these microorganisms that live in your body realize that cutting them off from this acidic protein source and switching to a more alkaline source will make it impossible for them to live there. Many people who believe in aliens believe that aliens would change the atmosphere of the Earth in order to make the atmosphere more comfortable for them. If you're eating raw meat of any kind, you have parasites. Even cooking doesn't really kill all the parasites. This is why raw meat is not the solution. It isn't sustainable, you have to kill other precious life forms to survive, and you're a vampire, a parasitic being. You live in death, and the force formerly known as Satan has taken over your mind. It's pretty easy. You must choose, either life or death. Duality exists in every aspect of our lives. That's the main problem with vegans and carnivores. They have succumbed to death and the god of the material realm. They don't understand life and the angels of the mother, for all is balanced between the four elements, and we have been entirely engrossed with the material aspect. When you eat cooked foods, you're eating death. There's no life in food. There's no energy or light. The water of the mother has been dried and evaporated, and the food is void of the breath of life. When you eat from a tree, that fruit is designed for you. It nurtures you. It heals you. The same is for all medicinal herbs. How is it that plants can create chemicals that are completely designed to heal specific problems that arise within the living beings of Mother Earth? Most of our pharmaceuticals come from plants, which truly shows that we can't even compete when it comes with Mother Nature. Nothing knows what is right for the body than her, but we assume that somehow science has figured out the body. They are far from it. Allopathic medicine is truly the dark age for healing, as we have been so preciously supported by nature, but too blind to see it. Nuts and seeds from the tree of life, and if they have not been roasted or boiled, then they contain the angels of life. Try cooking your seeds in oil and then planting them. Nothing will grow. Holy bread must be made in the sun. Bread made from the light of the sun that has not risen from yeast. Flatbread. Bacteria is a network. The only way to come in terms with your parasites and bacteria is to first rid yourself of Satan. remove the evil beings that live within you. After this, the angels will protect you, but your bodies rely on microorganisms to survive. The angels. Therefore, there must be a balance with these microorganisms. You must get your bacteria from nature, from the river blessed by the sun and by the fruits, and it was the same for Jesus. In his time, everyone had fallen into sin, and it was no different. The Essene Gospel of Peace is one of the most influential books I've ever read. It really did change my life, and I feel inclined to share it, and I hope it assists you in your journey. In order to want to dive deep into health, you need a motivating factor. For me, at first, I noticed that I was losing my hair, so it motivated me to look into how I can be as healthy as I can be. I didn't want to lose my hair when I was in my 30s, so I knew in my heart that I needed to fix this issue now. Hair is a sign of your health, and if you're prematurely graying or balding, it's not genetics, it's most likely due to acidosis, meaning you have toxins in your lymphatic system that are not being released properly. There are so many people that are getting signs that their lifestyle is unhealthy, like balding, bad digestion, bad breath, bloating, obesity, skin inflammation, but most people ignore it or they think that they're just cursed. I will straight up see grandparents having a full meal of Five Guys, and I'm sorry, just something about that doesn't seem right. If I was older and taking any prescriptions, I'd make it my priority to heal myself so that I can live as long as possible. But it's as if we've completely accepted that our lifespan is from 80 to 100. That's the problem. People are like, well, I feel fine. Yeah, you feel fine now, then you hit your 30s and you get your first set of problems. Then you turn 40, and this way of life is not livable any longer unless you start to take pills to suppress the problems. Then the last 30 years of your life is just dying, and everyone who makes it to 80 and 100 is just lucky. I don't think it's designed to be that way. We are constantly told that the ancients died at a young age, but that's such a lie. And in the Bible, it mentions much longer lifespans for humans. I truly feel the same goes for us, but it requires a balance with nature. So what's your motivating factor? Do you want to have a long lifespan? Did you have a disease in the past? Do you have a health issue? If not, don't wait till you do, because you can still be motivated from a cosmological. This way of life leads to a mind that is mystical in nature. It transforms your spirit into your true form, releasing your full magical potential and power. Jesus says that your temple must be clean in order to enter the heaven of God. We must all strive to cleanse our sacred body. The Essene Gospels are scriptures that were left out of the Bible and kept hidden in the Vatican. These scriptures describe a mystical Jesus, in which he informs the sick on how they may heal themselves of all illness. I'm honestly surprised that I didn't know about this book sooner. It seems to me that it's not widely talked about because I really can't find too much information on it. Usually there's like a subject that I'm learning about that's like the next biggest mind blow, and to be honest, the Essene Gospels has this mystical impact on your consciousness that really makes you question the way you view the world. We all know most of these things. It's honestly super simple to think about, and it makes you realize how convoluted and overanalyzed our thinking is today. It's almost habitual complexity. So, a group of sick people seek out Jesus in the woods because they hear that he knows all things and can heal all diseases. They ask, "Hey, why do we suffer from such sickness? Why can't we be whole like other people?" Jesus replies, saying, "Happy is it that you hunger for truth. I will satisfy you with the bread of wisdom. Happy are you that you knock, for I will lead you into the kingdom of our mother's angels, where the power of Satan cannot enter." And so the people were obviously confused by Jesus. It was too mystical for them, and they were not understanding who was the mother, but they were optimistic for more information. The Essenes were Gnostics and masters of the mystic state. They weren't locked into one state of consciousness. This gave them many mental abilities, such as seeing elementals. This is something that one could be pretty confused by when they first start reading this, just like the sick were. And Jesus says, "Those who receive your mother's angels, and if you do her laws, he who does these things shall never see disease. For the power of our mother is above all, and it destroys Satan and his kingdom, and has rule over all your body and all living things. The blood which runs in us is born of the blood of the earthly mother. The air that we breathe is born of our earthly mother. The hardness of our bones is born of the bones of the earthly mother, of the rocks and of the stones. The tenderness of our flesh is born of the flesh of the earthly mother, whose flesh waxes yellow and red in the fruits of the trees, and nurtures us in the furrows of the fields. Our bowers are born of the bowers of the earthly mother, and are hid from our eyes like the invisible depths of the earth. I tell you in very truth, man is the son of the earthly mother, and from her did the Son of Man receive his whole body, even as the body of the newborn babe is born of the womb of his mother. I tell you truly, you are the one of the earthly mother. She is in you, and you in her. Of her were you born, in her do you live, and into her you shall return again. Keep therefore her laws, for none can live long, neither be happy, but he who honors his earthly mother and does her laws. For your breath is her breath, your blood her blood, your bone her bone, your flesh her flesh, your bowels her bowels, your eyes and your eyes her eyes, and her ears. I tell you truly, should you fail to keep but one only of these laws, should you harm but only one of all your body's members, you shall be utterly lost in your grievous sickness, and there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. I tell you, unless you follow the laws of your mother, you can in no way escape death. And he who clings to the laws of his mother, to him shall his mother cling also. She shall heal all his plagues, and he shall never become sick. She gives him long life and protects him from all afflictions, from fire, from water, from the bite of venomous serpents. For you, your mother bore you, keeping life within you. She has given you her body, and none but she heals you. Happy is he who loves his mother and lies quietly in her bosom. So there we go. Jesus continues about the mother, which we now call a logical fallacy, or mother nature, but it's not. There is a natural diet, and he's getting the sick prepared by showing their minds the metaphysical philosophy that the Essenes practice, which is our ancient way. The sick fail to realize the basics of reality. What gives our blood life? Why does it rain? Not how, but why. Sure, you can say water cycle, but really this is what supports us. You can't really think this was all some random accident, which is what Jesus is hinting to in a very poetic way. What is air, and why is it supplied so graciously? Breath and animation are the main principles of life. He tells them that your bones are the same as the rocks and stones. We come from nature, and then we fall back into nature. And these things are so basic, but the sick had been lost in their modern age that they couldn't even ask such basic questions of life. Then Jesus says, "For I tell you truly, evils and dangers innumerable lie and wait for the sons of men. Beelzebub, the prince of all devils, the source of every evil, lies in wait in the bodies of all sons of men. He is death, the lord of every plague, and taking upon him a pleasing raiment, he tempts and entices the sons of men. Riches does he promise, and power, and splendid palaces, and garments of gold and silver, and a multitude of servants. All these he promises renown and glory, fornication and lustfulness, gluttony and wine bibbing, riotous living and slothfulness and idle days. And he entices everyone by that to which their heart is most inclined. And in the day that the sons of men have already become slaves of all these vanities and abominations, then in the payment thereof he snatches from the sons of men all the things which the earthly mother gave them so abundantly. He takes from them their breath, their blood, their bone, their flesh, their bowels, their eyes and their ears, and the breath of the Son of Man becomes short and stifled, full of pain and evil smelling, like the breath of unclean beast, and his blood becomes thick and evil smelling, like the water of swamps. It clots and blackens, like the night of death, and his bone becomes hard and knotted, and melts away within and breaks asunder, as a stone falling down upon a rock. And his flesh waxes fat and watery, it rots and putrefies, with scabs and boils that are an abomination. And his bowels become full with abominable filthiness, with oozing streams of decay, and multitudes of abominable worms have their habitation there. And his eyes grow dim, till dark night enshrouds them, and his ears become stopped, like the silence of the grave. And last of all shall the erring Son of Man lose life, for he kept not the laws of his mother, and added sin to sin. Therefore are taken from him all the gifts of the earthly mother, breath, blood, bone, flesh, bowels, eyes, and ears, and after all else, life, with which the earthly mother crowned his body." This is what our modern day society is experiencing. That's what disease is. We've become overstimulated by material reality. We've lost touch with not just the concept of the mother nature physically, but metaphysically. We've lost touch with the egoless side of consciousness. So Jesus tells them that all you have to do is the mother's laws, and within the same hour, her angels will be there for you. He says no man can serve two masters. Either you serve Beelzebub and his devils, or you serve the earthly mother and her angels. Either he serves death, or he serves life. It's the same thing with eating. What are you going to choose? Dead, lifeless food, or the food that is full of life and light? The sick didn't have the ability to see these simple forces because it requires a different state of consciousness. Two states, death or life, sleep or awakeness. Most of us are in a constant sleep cycle in which we continue the same patterns of death. We don't even realize it's death. So Jesus continues, you don't understand the words of life because you are in death. Darkness darkens your eyes, and your ears are stopped with deafness. For I tell you, it profits you not at all that you pore over dead scriptures, if by your deeds you deny him who has given you the scripture. God and his laws are not in which what you do. They are not in gluttony and in wine-bibbing, neither in riotous living, nor in lustfulness, nor in seeking after riches, nor ye in hatred of your enemies. But all these things come from the kingdom of darkness and the Lord of all evils. And to all these things do you carry in yourselves, and so the word and the power of God enter not into you, because all manner of evil and all manner of abominations have their dwelling in your body. This goes back to our video on the connection between demons and parasites. That's exactly what he's referring to. But on a deeper level, he's saying that these demons are living on another dimension of your own spirit. So Jesus continues, and basically the way to get rid of all these abominations is fasting and prayer. He also explains to them how to do enemas using a gourd and by entering the stalk into your rear. Kind of crazy. And he explains that they need to do this every day of their fast until the water comes out is clear. Now, I don't know if you've done an enema before, and I know most guys would never think about it, but just ask yourself, you really think all the food that you're digesting is coming out? I mean, we're extremely enzyme deficient as a society, and most of us would be shocked to find the bulk of waste that has been built up within our intestines. And Jesus is clearly talking about this stage, where all these evil-smelling things are coming out of the body. I tell you truly, the angel of water shall cast out your body of all uncleanness, which defiled it within, without and within. And all unclean and evil-smelling things shall flow out of you. And you shall see with your eyes and smell with your nose all the abominations and uncleanness which defiled the temple of your body. He's telling them that this is why they are in pain, because they are filthy inside, where their eyes see not the occulted. After my fast, just after 1 week of juice fasting, just as Jesus describes, I was getting rid of this black toxic waste, and it smelled horrible. And it wasn't just what I ate. I mean, I've been what I thought was healthy for a long time now. I mean, I've been vegan for 4 years, and I was getting rid of this black toxic waste eating just watermelon. Forget about the juice. This stuff should not be coming out of you if you are eating just fruits, but it's an accumulation of our old lifestyle and decades of being fed processed acidic foods. But if you go through with a detox, you can really clean some stuff out of your body. At the beginning of the detox, you'll poop out whatever the last thing you ate was, right? But then after a day or two, there's a pause. But if you go hard on the juices, like citrus, pineapple, beets, you'll start to see a different type of material exit your body. Your pee begins to get darker and darker because the truth is some people are not filtering as much as they should be. And they're actually in a shutdown type of state in which their body's not really ringing any alarms, but the kidney and liver are not really truly functioning. If one was to go on a juice fast, and this varies to person, but there will come a time where the body turns off your digestion and the desire for hunger. The kidneys will begin to function. The senses begin to kick in. It can be felt from within the intestines and the organs as they begin to breathe again from being clogged for so long. Many people who are dismissive of this might say that's too much sugar. It really isn't if that's like all you're having. The body thrives off of it. And it's not just that. The fruits work as an astringent for removing these toxins from your body. There really is no argument. Many have experienced the same results. There are many people who have lived primarily off of fruits and are doing just fine, well built, and they have a healthy glow. Now, I will warn that this is going to reveal the diseases that have laid dormant within your body. In some cases, a juice fast could shock someone with a serious illness. Let's have the awareness to be responsible and take these things slowly. The first few steps being removing meat and adding fruit in place of processed grains, toxic fats, and refined sugar-filled snacks. Okay, so back to the story. The sick finish listening to Jesus, he leaves, and they're like, what do we do now? So they get to praying and cleaning their insides, and they begin to get extremely sick. They're sweating, vomiting, all this gooey stuff is coming out from all over their body, boils, and their urine becomes as thick as the honey of bees. Like I was saying will happen in detox. These are our filtering systems. They're just so backed up that all the toxins that we take in are finding homes in other parts of our bodies, causing localized diseases. Okay, so they continue, they start to become miserable, and they are doubting that they can make it to the 7th day. So I'm going to begin to wrap this up. There will be a more in-depth breakdown of these scenes in the future on this channel, but I want to finish this off with the most craziest part. So they're begging Jesus for help, but Jesus tells a story in hopes that they would learn a lesson for how they got into this state in the first place. It's basically saying that the mother will forgive you for 7 years of sinning in 7 days. It's 49 years and in 49 days, just letting them know to hang on tight. But they beg and plead that one man isn't going to make it. He had it the worst of everybody, and he pleads for Jesus to cast the Satan out of him. Quote, "And Jesus milked an ewe, which was feeding among the grass, and he put the milk upon the sand, made hot by the sun, saying, Lo, the power of the angel of water has entered this milk, and now the power of the angel of sunshine will enter it also. And the milk became hot by the strength of the sun, and now the angels of water and of the sun will join with the angel of air, and lo, the vapor of the hot milk began to rise slowly into the air. Come and breathe in by your mouth the strength of the angels of water, of sunshine, and of air, that it may come into your body and cast out the Satan from you. And the sick man whom Satan tormented did breathe within himself, deeply, the rising whitish vapor. Straightway will Satan leave your body, since for 3 days he starves and finds no food within you. He will come out of you to satisfy his hunger by the hot steaming milk. For his food finds favor in his sight. He will smell its smell and will not be able to resist the hunger which has tormented him 3 days already. But the Son of Man will destroy his body, that he may torment none else again. And the sick man's body was seized with an ague, and he retched as though he would vomit, but he could not, and he gasped for air, for his breath was spent. And he fainted on the lap of Jesus. Now does Satan leave his body, see him, and Jesus pointed to the sick man's opened mouth. And then they all saw with astonishment and terror that Satan was coming out from his mouth in the shape of an abominable worm, straight towards the steaming milk. Then Jesus took 2 sharp stones in his hand and crushed the head of Satan, and drew from out the sick man all the body of the monster, which was almost as long as the man. When the abominable worm came out of the sick man's throat, he recovered at once his breath, and then all his pain ceased. And the others looked with terror at his abominable body of Satan." So you heard that, right? Jesus pulls out a worm the size of a man's body. The thing is I think the people were influenced by Jesus, they felt his words, but it wasn't until they saw what was truly inside their bodies that they became shocked. It's like we know, but do we? Because I think the truth of how our bodies look on the inside, mostly because of self-indulgence, is that it's toxic, it's acidic, it's a low vibration. Okay, so that's great and all, but how do we apply this to the modern day? Or, like, how am I supposed to react to this? Do I just stop eating? Do I only eat fruits? It's good to ask questions, but one must apply the law for himself. You either choose life or death, and everything. As for food, Jesus recommends a very simple diet, eating no more than twice a day and fasting on the 7th day. Now remember, there is diet and then there's detox, so I don't want to confuse people. I'm not really recommending anything. I'm just sharing my personal research. I think it's important to not completely disregard all ancient writings and ideas. We're conditioned to think that the ancients are idiots who were all suffering from diseases, and that's half true, because it's clear that we've had many cycles of civilizations come and go. There are bound to be high times and low times, like an oscillating wave, that somehow we are supposed to believe that people with tiny lifespans suffering from some plague have the time and energy to hire workers to build these massive, perfectly geometric structures. We're only told of the lowest parts of our history in order to make us think that we are bound to these behaviors. We get told that our ancestors killed in order to survive. Maybe at one point that was the case, but it doesn't have to be the case now. Our outer world reflects our inner worlds, and it's not just our minds, but our physical bodies. As within, so without. If there's a lesson to be learned, it's that we must cleanse ourselves. Whether it's mentally or physically, hopefully both, we must take part in cleaning our temple. The true reality is that in the modern day, we're treated like kings. We can eat what we want, and there's no such thing as delicacy. This has resulted in our intestines becoming numb to these illnesses. Do not think that such things don't apply to you. It will catch up to you. Either we can live our lives short, full of momentary pleasures and die, or you can live with life and have a long-lasting, fulfilling life. Which I truly do believe it's possible. It's said that Enoch didn't even die. The angels just walked him into heaven. Sounds pretty cool. So detox. And again, I'm not telling anyone to go out and do this, but if someone asked me, this is what I would say. Let's just look at this chart. When you're on a detox, you want to avoid all meat, too much acidity, and too much on your kidneys and liver. The argument is that your liver will produce all the enzymes it needs because it has all the nutrients it needs, but this is just a blind not understanding what life means. They know that it's not a way of life, therefore it cannot lead to life. No cooked starches. If you get some starches from juicing some beets or carrots, it's fine, but potatoes, squash, any nightshades really are going to slow down the digestion process. Eggs and dairy are to be avoided, but if you eat constant meat, maybe start with vegetarian and work your way down. And vegetables and greens are good for building, but not necessarily for detoxing. There are some exceptions, but you don't want to be juicing with just kale and spinach. Celery, beets, carrots, dandelion, parsley are all really good for juicing. The goal is to get the lymphatic and endocrine system working at their prime again. And my favorite juices that I like are a mixture of oranges, pineapples, watermelons, beets, apples, grapes, celery, cucumber, lemon, and any other melon really. So for the first couple days, just every time you're hungry, make a really awesome juice. Pineapple orange beets my favorite. You won't get sick, you're not gonna die, just listen to your body, not the parasites, and do what feels right. If the fruit juices are making things move too fast or disrupting something you have inside of you, then just start slow, just eat fruits. I did that for a long time, like before fast, I would just eat watermelon. You'd be surprised how much watermelon can clean you. That's not watermelon coming out of you after 5 days. Either way, whatever you find is the best method for you, I'm not really in a position to be recommending anything, but what needs to be done is a detox state. We have to get rid of these blocked up toxins, not just the mucoid plaque, but the toxins in the blood. We are filthy on the inside. How can we unveil our minds without the proper knowledge of what's going on in our bodies? Our stomach is our second brain, meaning it's connected to our mind. That is why these parasites have access to our most personal thoughts. We have jobs, we have responsibilities. Not everyone is ready for this, and that's completely fine, but life is life, and death is death. Are we vampires? Or are we beings of light that can be self-sustained? Once the cleansing is done, then the building can begin. You don't want to overdo it. Remember, we must eat no more than twice a day, and we must be more mindful of digestion in general. And from this point on, you can't cook your food. There's no life in your food if you cook it. There's no enzymes, there's no bacteria. A raw lifestyle of fruits, nuts, seeds, and vegetables is the Essene diet. Those fruits, then we should ultimately work up towards that higher vibrational diet and remove the need for all acidic foods together. The idea is to eat in a way that things are not left to rot inside the body. A simple life of plenty of fruits, which really isn't simple. There are so many choices. You have nut yogurts, and then you can get into fermenting, which will bring us to another level. So the sick people ask Jesus, but what about our bread? I know a lot of people question whether or not grains and gluten are something we should be eating, and probably not, but what Jesus recommends is basically a sprouted flatbread that's baked in the sun. You don't let the dough rise. So yeah, basically an Essene diet would be something like that. And it's Mostly a raw diet of fruits and seeds, same goes for honey. But here's the thing, the diet that we've been fed our whole lives has led to malabsorption, meaning it takes us more food to grow, especially with people who have a higher metabolism. They have to eat more while being completely clogged. So the idea is once you clean yourself and rid yourself of disease, then you won't need to continually plump your blood with protein, which is what we basically do. We don't absorb enough as a species, so in order to keep the illusion of being strong and somewhat healthy, we're told to eat protein, but really, this is just clogging our systems for vegans and meat eaters. Alright, so how do you expect to keep my size and figure? Well, I mean, dude, The Rock is not natural. Do you see what he has to do to keep that figure? I mean, nothing about that is natural. It's gonna catch up to him. You know, the mind does have power and it can shape his body into any form it wants, you know? Will, mind over matter. But life is life and death is death. And if you suffer from illness, then your body is screaming for you to open your eyes. If you've heard this message, maybe it has something to do with you. The idea is that we must fast, cleanse our system, and then take on a diet that is aligned with the principles of life. Modern day diets such as veganism and carnivore diets are extremely misleading and unhealthy due to high acidity from protein and oils. These matters can be even worse for vegans since they partake in high processed sugar intake. I'm talking about people who go to vegan fast food restaurants or eat Beyond Burger, or really any vegan product is usually filled with canola oil, processed oil acids, and sugar. These diets are not the diets that were intended for man. Man was intended to be self-sufficient, but in this lower experience of matter, we have been supplied with a diet that is harmonized with life. How will we ever unveil our minds if we can't come in harmony with our bodies and Mother Nature?